How long was this, these discussions in the works, and just your how good is it to get a first round draft pick back in terms of this, even though you're giving up a player off the roster?
Yeah, thanks, guys. I think our preparations internally have sort of begun since since the pandemic started, and then as the new CBA began to have some solid formation, and we knew that the cap was going to be flat, and then just sort of look at our roster and determine where we were going to have to gain the most flexibility possible, or where we could draw from to gain that flexibility. And then once our season ended, sort of take the temperature of the teams throughout the league and see where they were at. And that was sort of the course it took over the last number of weeks here since we've been out. It's great to, we're excited about the first round pick and about Filip Holander and Evan Rodriguez and David Warsofsky as well. So, we're happy with it. It's that said, Cappy is a extremely good NHL player, and I don't think it should be lost that he's going off our roster and will be a great fit in Pittsburgh for them. So our hope is that this works out great for all the teams, for us and for Pittsburgh, and for Kasperi as well, who gave us a great 5 years as a member of our organization.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll go next to Lance Hornby from the Toronto Sun. Go ahead, Lance.
Oh, hi, Kyle. Thanks. You addressed some of the positives, certainly right off the bat. Can you talk about, though, where this move leaves you? I'm sure you're still looking for some help on defense, more cap flexibility. This is kind of seen as as a precursor to some other stuff you might do this summer.
Yeah, certainly. I don't think this is going to be it for us as we go along. And I think the key is, you touched on it in your question, Lance, is that we need to gain some flexibility, or greater flexibility than what we have. And we've got our own business to take care of with Dermott and Mikheyev as restricted free agents. And this will give us some space beyond them to sort of address all the other needs that we feel that we have. So without the flexibility or the space to do so freely, we would be really restricted in what we can do. And this opens it up a little bit for us.
Thanks. And a follow-up, you touched on Holander. What exactly do you like about him?
He's a player, going back to the draft, that he was right near the top of our board when we picked in the second round, and we selected Sean Durzi, and then Pittsburgh selected him the pick right after, if my memory serves me correctly. And he was right there for us. We were kind of hoping he would fall to the next pick that we had gotten in a previous trade. So we kind of knew we had done a lot of work on him leading up to the draft, and John Lilly and Tim Speltz and Ari Vori and our staff had done great work on him. So we knew about him last year. He had an injury that cost him, really the fall in the first half of the year, and then had returned and played really well. The things we like about him as a player, that extremely intelligent, very competitive, and has shown very well playing in the Swedish Elite League on a very good team and program in Luleå, and among their top lines as well. So we're excited for him. We think he'll certainly add to our depth in our prospect pool up front, and we're really excited to add Filip today.
Great, thanks. We'll move to Mark Masters from TSN. Go ahead, Mark.
To assess the
try again there, Mark.
Kyle, how do you assess the free agent market when it comes to defensemen this year?
We haven't. I mean, I think assessing the free agent market is really difficult right now, Mark, just because it's so different than anything else that we faced, just with the cap where it is, and different cash restrictions on all teams in the league, and what you're able to do. So there's certainly, we can look at the list right now, and there are certainly a number of players that have been very good NHL players for a long time, and that's obviously a positive. But knowing what the market's going to bear out for them in terms of opportunity and contracts, I think, is really difficult right now. So we'll go through continue through our preparations and evaluating them as players, and then we'll see whether there may be any fits in that regard or via trade as we continue to bolster our roster.
It sounds like it's going to be a really deep draft. Are you open to moving that first round pick, or do you right now foresee yourself keeping that? And what sort of player do you think you could get there?
Yeah, well, I would say that we're open to doing, certainly to keeping the pick, but I think we're the spot that we're at with our team right now. We're also open probably to moving it if the right deal came along for someone that could help us now. But we'll go through as though we're going to be selecting there at 15, and the scouts led by John Lilly have done a great job already in readying us for if we were to acquire another pick in that range. And so I think we're well prepared there. And I think there's players at every position, forward, defense, and goalie, that are of interest to us at that spot.
Thanks, Mark. We'll go Jonas Siegel from The Athletic.
Hey, Kyle, how do you want to put that cap space to work? Or in other words, where do you see your needs?
Yeah, I think anywhere where we can improve our roster over where it was, Jonas, is how we want to use the cap space. And the reality is that there's two ways to look at it. I think you could use it in the off season, or you could let it accrue during the year and then let the team get into the year and see what the needs are in the season, and then let it accrue and use it then. I think it's also going back to the previous to one of the previous questions about the free agent market. I think it was from Mark. Seeing the way that dollars are spread out, or the way that the market changes from previous years, will give us a good insight into where we want to use the space as well. So I'd love to be able to give a definitive answer on exactly how, but I think we wanted this flexibility so that we could be flexible inside the marketplace for either free agents or for trades. And so we'll keep an open mind about that. And we'll also keep an open mind to the fact that it would be great for us next year during the season to accrue space so that we could add, once we got into the year, via trade, something that we really haven't been able to do for a while, really aside from the Muzzin deal. So that would be a nice benefit to us to be able to stay flexible during the season also.
Well, is there a type of player that you want to add, like Muzzin types? Like, is there an embodiment that you're looking for?
If there's another Jake Muzzin, we would certainly be interested, to put it mildly. I think we're still going through our process of evaluating once you get through the emotional disappointment of it in the first few days after, where I think everybody is really, really disappointed with the way it go. You can look back at the series against Columbus and the season at large as objectively as possible and not so emotionally. And so, myself, Shanny, Sheldon, and our staff will continue to go through that and identify, what we feel that we need up front and on the back end. And then we'll have a look at the players who are available in trade or free agency and address it as best as possible.
Thanks, Jonas. We'll go Kevin McGran from the Toronto Star, please. Kevin.
So Kyle, just wanting to understand, is this the only trade that you have to make to give yourself the cap flexibility, or might there be more along these lines for this season's cap flexibility that you need?
Well, I just think I don't know. I guess the most honest answer I can give you, Kevin, is I don't know. This gives us flexibility if we wanted to become even more flexible, or wanted to do some bigger things with different types of players depending on their salary level. We could certainly continue to look to make moves like this. I think what this exercise has shown us that our players do have good value around the league, and we could accrue solid assets in return for them should we elect to do so. So right now we feel good about where we're at, but we'll have a better idea of what more we may need to do as we gather more information as the season comes to a close, and the teams that are still playing kind of to give their evaluation of where they need to proceed to get ready for next season as well. So I don't mean to duck the question. I just think it's so tough right now to know what more we'll need, but this was a good start to getting to where we want to go.
And you spoke 2 or 3 Zoom calls ago, I think, about how different the landscape is, both from what the cap is going to be and in terms of developing young players, and that fans shouldn't necessarily worry if a guy goes back to Russia or Sweden, because you basically want to get as many guys playing as possible. Are you closer to knowing where everybody's going to be at this point? And can you speak just a little bit about the need to have players play at this point in their development?
Yeah, I think that the players are depending on where they're at. I think that it's so different, right? It depends on if they're very physically mature and we feel they just need to work on various different things with their game, and thus it's important to get them loaned and playing games. conversely, there may be guys that they're excellent on the ice, but what's preventing them from playing in the NHL and playing at their best in the NHL is just their physical strength. And so this sort of pause can be a blessing on both ends of it, Kevin. If you're physically mature and in a good spot physically and you need the game action, you get a bit of a bonus here where the NHL's in the playoffs now, and some of these European leagues are getting back up and starting, so you can accrue some games in that experience. Conversely, if you're a little bit behind physically, you can use this time off where there are no games for the majority of teams in hockey now, 23 teams in the NHL, and you can use this period to really put the work in to get your body to the spot it needs to be. So I think it's a question that doesn't have a very generic answer. It's based really on the individuals and where they're at. And so that I guess would be the key for us in looking at it. In Holander's case, the player we just acquired, that was a loan agreement that was done with Luleå before the trade, and of which we're 100% on board with honoring, where he's there, and if he can come to training camp, and if he makes the team, great, and if not, he gets loaned back. Now they were an excellent team last year and should be an excellent team this year and are a great program, so it's not overly that's a good setup for us with him, which was also appealing.
Thanks, Kevin. We'll go to Josh Clipperton from the Canadian Press. Go ahead, Josh.
Hey, Kyle, thanks for doing this. Just you and Jim have basically fired off the first off-season salvo in the league with this move. I'm just wondering, looking ahead a little bit, you mentioned the salary cap staying flat for the foreseeable future. What this off-season, especially with the draft and free agency, when it opens up with so little money available to a lot of teams and a lot of uncertainty, what it's going to look like across the league, do you think?
It's going to be very different, I think, just because of the nature of how quickly everything's going to transpire after the playoffs end as well. Josh will certainly have some influence on it, and it's really tough to say how the types, if different teams want to move on from different players, they're trying to shift them around, how that's going to impact the free agent landscape, and whether you're more willing to move assets for players or use cap space or cash, right? And I think it's really tough to project all that out until we have a greater feeling on the pandemic and the way it's going to affect attendance and all those different things. So I think the unknowns right now are at a level still far beyond hockey, and until we kind of get a better sense of the way that's all going to be impacted, I think it'll be tough to really gain as great insight into the free agent market and trade market as possible.
What's the last few weeks been like for you since the team went out? I mean, there's obviously been criticism in some circles. I'm just wondering what that's like. You know the job and the market you're in, and the pressures. I'm just wondering what it's been like for you personally.
It's been, I think, when we don't reach our expectation or potential, I think that the blame deserves to come directly to me. And I know that this is the job that I signed up for, and in a market like this, it's great because when things are great, people are very quick to tell you and give you your kudos, and then when you don't meet those expectations, they're quick to honestly tell you as well. So the criticism, Josh, I would say is deserved. We didn't reach expectations, and that falls on me. And the last couple of weeks has just been meeting with our staff and starting to slowly now, rather than do it right the morning after and rush it along, start to have in-depth conversations with our players and go through and start to go about our business of our off season and improving the team. So I don't take any of it personally. I know that the criticism is deserved, and I accept that. And that's one of the great parts of being here is I think it's fair as well. So and that's fine.
Thank you. We will go to Chris Johnson from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Kyle. I'm wondering, after doing what you did, looking at your team, do you feel that your forward depth is still strong enough that you could make another trade similar to this one and remove another player if that deal made sense?
I think it would really depend. I think as we saw this year, Chris, and not knowing what the schedule is going to be like next year and how quickly the games are going to happen and different things like that, I think depth is something we really have to be careful about. That's why it was important for us to have Rodriguez in the deal as well, and begin to have a conversation with his representatives about the opportunity that may be here for him. So without knowing, I'd be a little bit tentative about the rest of it without knowing what the schedule, what the season's really going to look like. Because if the games are in a compressed format, or there's lots of travel still, I would worry about leaving Sheldon and the team in a bad spot if we depleted the depth further.
Thank you. We'll go to Justin Cuthbert from Yahoo Sports. Go ahead, Justin.
Hey, Kyle. Did you detect a ceiling on Kapanen, and how much did his path or the path of his development factor into the decision ultimately to move on from him?
Yeah, I don't think Kasperi has reached his ceiling yet, Justin. I think he's got lots of room to continue to grow and develop. I think what it came down to from us was we know we've got William and Mitch on the right side there, and we just felt that we could deal from that next sort of collection of forwards, and he was just, this deal we felt was the best fit for us in terms of the flexibility and the draft pick and the prospect coming back. So no, nothing to do with what we felt with him and reaching a ceiling or anything like that.
Thanks.
We'll go 2 final questions. Josh Cloak from The Athletic, and then Dave McCarthy from NHL.com to round it out. Josh Cloak, go ahead.
Hey, Kyle, you kind of touched on this, but what have you seen from Filip that gives you confidence he'll be an NHL player for you one day?
Yeah, I think Josh, it's just the way that he's played in Luleå in the SHL as a very young player, especially last year at 19 years old. The way that he played near the top of the lineup on a very good team, and was responsible and played in all situations, and was very responsible at both ends of the ice. His intelligence and way that he plays the game, in addition to his talent level and his competitiveness, were the things that really stood out to us. And then in doing sort of the background work on him, and it hasn't been that long since the draft, so we had done it 2 years ago as well, going into the draft in Dallas, and then following that up again here, we had really kind of found that he's got excellent character, his work ethic is excellent, very little maintenance with him, and will do everything he can to improve, and very well liked by his coaches. So those were the areas of the game that we felt most confident in, that will translate to being able to play the way that we want to play, and add to our mix just with the way that he plays, how competitive he is, and how intelligent he is and responsible.
Thanks.
Great, thanks. And we'll round out with Dave McCarthy, NHL.com. Go ahead, Dave.
Hey, Kyle, just wondering, in terms of probably the 2 top RFAs that you've got on the roster in Ilya Mikheyev and Travis Dermott, how far along in terms of progress are you in terms of contract discussions, and how would you rate the season that each guy had? Obviously, Ilya missed a lot of it, but how would you rate and assess how they performed this year?
Well, I think we'll get into those discussions with them. I think there's always, Brandon is always in touch with the agents and vice versa with him, and so Brandon will have those discussions that are ongoing, and I don't think either situation is overly complex in terms of the contract. And Mikheyev's case, he's arbitration eligible, so it has a natural solution if it's not done before that. And in Dermott's case, he doesn't have arbitration rights. So Mikheyev's is a really tough one to evaluate, just because of the injury. And he came back, and he was excellent in the training camp. He worked his butt off, and it just in the series against Columbus just didn't go in for him. And that can happen. But he's great character, great work ethic, and very valuable, versatile forward for us. Can go up and down the lineup and really plays well on the penalty kill. So we're obviously excited about him and where he'll be going with us in the coming years. And in Travis's case, I thought the opportunity for him, especially near the end of February there, when we had Morgan and in Jake Muzzin out, gave him a chance to play up in the lineup and really continue to show the potential that we all know he has. And we continue to need Travis he's a young defenseman, and it doesn't happen overnight, and it's not linear. He's had some great moments for us, and now it's just a matter of continuing to work with Travis, and he puts it all in off the ice, and just continue to have it correspond to helping him reach his potential on the ice. But both are very good players, and are a big part of things here, and we'll look forward to getting their situations taken care of and get them focused on next season.